Hello, we're back with COVID cooking. Today we're going to talk about thickeners, in particular different kinds of roux and cornstarch. Cornstarch, if you're going to use it, you would typically have some whatever sauce or soup or whatever it is would already be going. You make a slurry out of this and cold water. Always cold water. Make it smooth, pour it in, bring it to a boil, and then see how it goes. A, it has to come to a boil, and B, you're putting raw starch in it, so you have to cook it long enough once it's in there to cook the cornstarch up. Otherwise you have that sort of tacky flavor of cornstarch. So the other one is roux, which is basically equal parts weight of fat and flour. So whatever kind of product you want to end up with depends on what kind of fat you use. Like let's say you were making clam chowder, you could use bacon fat for your roux. We're going to use oil. Typically you would use butter, but we're going to use oil because we're going to cook this roux all the way through from white to blonde to caramel to mahogany. And then I'm going to use that mahogany roux later to make gumbo. So I'm using oil because if I use butter, it'll burn and the oil won't. So very important, equal parts weight. So this is 8 ounces of oil and 8 ounces liquid measure is the same as weight measure, because oil's basically the same as water, which is an ounce is an ounce. But then this is 8 weight ounces of flour. If you don't do that, it's going to be too soupy. So come on around. This pan is already hot. And I'm going to whip this in. Make sure it's smooth. No lumps. And even though I dumped it all in there, if you use a whip, you can, like, it's already pretty smooth. So right now, technically, this is a roux. It's a white roux. So if I wanted to do some kind of a thicken a cream sauce or something like that, and I want it to stay really white, I can use this just like this. But the flour is not cooked. So if I put it into something, I have to cook that long enough to cook the flour out. The more you cook the flour, the less its ability to thicken. So this right now will thicken a lot more than the same roux when it's cooked down to a darker consistency. I almost never will use a roux without at least cooking the flour out for a while. Now, if you wanted to make a little roux in a pan, in a saute pan, and then add some kind of liquid to it, stock or cream or whatever, if the roux is hot, make sure the liquid is cold. Because if you put hot liquid into it, you get lumps that will never come out. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Come on.
I'll wait for you to talk.
Okay, so this is now blonde. Blonde roux. At this point, the flour is actually cooked. So you can use this just like this, put it in something else, and you don't have to cook that to cook the flour out. It's already out. You're never going to get a white sauce out of this, but you could do cream sauces and stuff like that. Now, you can't tell, but at this point, we start getting a nutty aroma out of the flour when it starts cooking down. Which is good. That's what we want. I actually, when I'm just making a roux to make a roux, I will put more flour in it than this. Just the way I like it. This, to me, is a little bit soupy, but the amounts are correct. They have to be, you have to have at least that much flour in. If you put less flour in, the flour won't absorb all the oil, and then afterwards, whatever you're making, whether it's soup or whatever, the excess oil will break out and you'll have a nice coating of oil on top of your soup. And yes, I am standing over it and stirring it constantly. Once it starts to brown, it'll brown pretty quickly. We're working ourselves right into caramel here. So you can see it's quite a bit darker now.
Picture.
This would be if you wanted to, if you were going to do some kind of beef-based soup or stew or whatever, something that's going to be darker and meaty. The next stop is mahogany. Most people that I've seen who do a mahogany roux don't make it dark enough. It's got to be that close to burning, which means you really have to stand over it. You don't have to take it that far, but for something like gumbo or for most Cajun Creole applications, you want it to be really dark. You can also see, if you get in here, see it's drying up a bit. It's not as soupy as it was before. I'm also going to turn this down a little bit. Okay, that's about as far as we can take it. So that is a mahogany roux. And that's going to go for gumbo, which is a different video. So you got to wait for that. So that's it for roux. As usual and as always, if you have questions, please put them in the comments and I will always answer your questions. Thanks a lot. We'll catch you next time.